is a protest. This is all the time. This protest happened a half mile from my home. On average, there are 10 gun murders every year in the nation of Korea. Well, Korea is about 1/6 the size of the United States, right? So you're a nation of 51 million people. We are 333 million people. I take Korea, I take that 10, the number 10, I multiply it by 6, and I get 60. So 60 every year if you were the size of the United States in population numbers. We have 60 murders in the United States. So we also have 60 every 24 hours. Who are you? Korean people, you all are very good at protesting. It's almost like a professionalization of protests. I don't think I've ever encountered a nation that enjoyed protesting more than the nation of Korea. Now, I've been to many places. You know, I've been to Haiti. I have a project in Haiti. Been to Haiti maybe 10 times. And Haitians are always out doing something, yelling about something, but it's not like the protests here. So I was reading about protests, just reading different things, and I came across this quote. It's like going to a baseball game. And I went to a baseball game last time I was here with one of my friends who's here today. And it was a really fascinating experience. And I really enjoyed watching the different sides. And the local team was playing Incheon. And so, you know, there was fans from both sides, and I just watched the whole thing happen. And I watched how, you know, people had signs and everything was coordinated. And I've been to some protests here in Korea. And not that I was protesting, but I just kind of happened upon them, and because I'm a sociologist, if I see something happening, I'm going to go right toward it because I'm fascinated by anything that's happening that is out of the ordinary. And I think, wow, this is really a fascinating thing. Look at how people are, and I couldn't tell what was really going on. I was thinking, the first time I encountered it, I thought, wow, are these people protesting? Because they don't really seem angry. It's too coordinated. It's like a dance. It's like they're dancing. It's like cheerleading or so. I didn't know what it was. I couldn't figure it out. People sat down, and then they stand up, and they hold the sign, and they take the sign down. And then I came across this quote. It's like going to a baseball game. And the quote is from a Korean who I think was about my age, who went to a lot of protests and said, oh, I really enjoy going to these protests because it's like going to a baseball game. And I thought, oh, yeah. And then I listened to Koreans, oh, yeah, we're protesting all the time. We're really angry. You know, this is it, our society, how they protest, and we're falling apart, and there's so many divisions here, and we can't figure it out, and, you know, this is really dangerous for society to have so many protests. And I think, protests? You don't know what protests are. It's not a baseball game. This is a protest, right? They were protesting after a sports event. And you think, oh, they're probably protesting because their team lost. No, they're protesting because their team won. This is a protest. A whole downtown destroyed by protesters from the team that won. This is a protest. This is a protest against police brutality. This is a protest all over the United States. Now, there weren't fires all over the United States, but there were plenty of fires. This is a more serious protest. Here, I dug around on the internet to say, like, okay, when do protests in Korea look like this and look like this? And I found a couple examples. This is all the time. This protest happened a half mile from my home. These are students, many of them my students, who were protesting because my university fired our football coach. And the students are out in the streets. So I want to ask you, imagine students here at this university protesting. What you don't see are the fires. You don't see the broken windows. You just see one van that got tipped over. And the students were not even drunk. They were just protesting. This is a protest. So when you have students here at this university protesting, these are students at my university. And for a while, we were having a protest or two protests every single year. Very different culture. This, compared to this, very different culture. So I listen to Koreans say, oh, but we have these problems because we have all these protests. And I say, no, hang on. That's a baseball game. This is a protest. It's a very different thing. These people are angry. You say like, oh, but we have these protests here in Korea, and the protesters are really angry. No, these people are angry. Okay, so 2,600. So the estimate is that there are about 2,600 homeless citizens of Seoul. 2,600 homeless citizens. So I was talking to a Korean colleague, and I said, hey, tell me about homelessness. This is last year. He said, oh yeah, it's a real problem here in Korea. I said, really? I'm like, well, you have to go down by Seoul Station, and you go to a couple places, but there's a problem, real problem with homelessness. And I said, define problem with homelessness. Define that problem to me. And I'll interpret the problem as a problem from many different places in the world. Because, see, what's really important, because the subject matter of today's talk is to understand Korean ways of being in the world. Korean characteristics and values. Think about values. Koreans saying, we have a problem with homelessness. Okay, all right. 2,600. Okay, now, LA, Korea is about 2.5 times the size of the city of Los Angeles. The city of Los Angeles. So I'm going to go back to Los Angeles, okay? 2.5 times the size of the city of Los Angeles. If Korea had the same homelessness problem as Los Angeles, proportionate to the population, if Korea had the same number of homeless people as Los Angeles, okay? So you follow that, right? You would have 120,000 homeless people here in Seoul. So when you say, we have a homelessness problem in Seoul, what you're saying is, according to our values, according to the way we see the world, we have a homelessness problem in Seoul. And I say, that's a homelessness problem. That's a problem. Now, you're saying, well, that's a problem too, to us, because we have a different way of seeing the world. I'm like, okay, that's fine, but understand that the world isn't like Korea. So one of the things that I do in my life is that I hold mirrors up to different cultures and different people. And for a long time, I was going to the Middle East, traveling in the Middle East a lot, all of the countries in the Gulf region of the Middle East. And I was doing the same thing there. Hang on. Let me help you understand your culture by looking at your culture from within the lens of many other cultures. So now I do the same thing here. Look at this from the lens Can you imagine 120,000 people on the way here into this lecture, including on the campus? Every single person in this room would have encountered people who are homeless, people who are living on the street, people who are asking you for money, people who are saying, help me, do something. Yeah, do you have any money? You say, you're walking to this lecture hall. No, I don't have any money, which is maybe right because, everybody uses plastic here, so you maybe wouldn't have money. But you're walking, no, I don't have any money. Okay. No, I don't have money. No, I'm sorry. This is what things would be. This is what it is to be in LA, in San Francisco, in Washington, D.C., in New York, in every large metropolitan area and urban area in the United States. So then I think, the characteristics and values of Korea, you really can't understand what the characteristics and values of Korea are unless you understand the characteristics and values of the rest of the world. Otherwise, you just live in this bubble of thinking, Now, that's not a bad thing to think that 2,600 people who are homeless in the city of Seoul is a problem. That's not a bad thing. That, to me, as a person who's a humanist, that's actually a really good thing. But understand what that means, because you also have to see this. And then you can learn something about Korea by learning what you are not. See, we learn who we are by learning what we are not or who we are not. That's why I have the conversations with my students that I do. You see, by the way, once again, I'm entirely convinced that people watch my lectures and watch my classes not because of anything that I say. And in fact, when I ask people, hey, why are you interested? Why do you watch videos about a college classroom? They say, oh, I love listening to students, which, by the way, is very humbling for me. It keeps my ego in check because I'm now at an age when I think I have some wisdom to say to the world, and I'm at the very age or the very time when everybody is telling me we don't care what you think because we're mostly interested in what your students think. And I think, well, my students don't know anything. They're just young people, but they do. And that's kind of how it is for all of us. That in many ways, we don't need to know who we are. We need to know who we're not. Okay? And that's what my students are teaching the world. Okay, let me show you something else. So I have an apartment in Bogota, Colombia. And I go there. I haven't been there in the past year, but see where that arrow is? Right at the tip of that arrow, that's where my apartment is in Bogota. Okay? Now, let me say something about this. The green area of Bogota are the safe areas. Now, safe areas are not necessarily safe areas, but they're areas where the most you're going to get pickpocketed. I have my phone in my back pocket. You don't walk around in Bogota with your phone in your back pocket. This is a very different place. But even in the green areas, the safe areas, but you're probably less likely to get assaulted there. A few more police, it's kind of. The yellow areas are the areas that are, you need to be pretty careful. You don't really want to go out at night if you can avoid it. Certainly don't go out at night on your own, but just be really vigilant and careful all the time. The orange area is where it says San Cristobal. That's okay, now you got to be really careful because you definitely don't want to go out at night and there's a lot of bad things can happen to you there. And the red areas are, don't go there. If you don't live in those areas, don't go there. And if you do have to go there and drive, lock your car doors, do it in the day, but be really careful, and go quickly and leave, okay? This is Bogota, Colombia. Now, I could find other cities all over the world like this. In Bogota, relatively speaking, I mean, I've never been robbed in Bogota, and as a sociologist, I'm pretty careful, I'm pretty capable, I'm always watching kind of what's happening, right? Okay, let me show you something. This is Seoul, okay? So here. Dangerous? Yeah, this is what it's called, dangerous. That's the word they use. So I'm not sure how your translators are translating it. Very dangerous and extremely dangerous, okay? Now, it just happens that I found a map of Seoul that's kind of these different colors. But I want to ask you, do you see any of these colors on the map? There's not a single area in Seoul. There might be a couple there are some alleyways that, yeah, especially if you're a woman, you're like, yeah, don't go down there alone at night. There are some places, there are a few places there. I'm quite well aware. Listen, I'm a sociologist. I study crime. I study delinquency. I study many, many things. So I'm aware of certain things in this city, in this society. But there aren't even any yellow areas, big areas, a couple streets. So I think, let me hold the mirror up to you. Say, what kind of society are you? What are your values? What are your characteristics? What does this tell you about who you are and what Korea has become? Now, mind you, there are many countries I can go to that would be like this. I mean, I can go to Singapore, I can go to Japan. I mean, there are any number, most of the Middle East. You know, I've been to Iraq. Iraq, strangely enough, is pretty safe, especially if you're a foreigner, and strangely enough, as an American, which would imagine probably goes counter to everything you might imagine, but Iraqis are very protective. They don't want bad things to happen to foreigners because it reflects poorly on them. Well, it sounds a lot like Korea, but you mostly don't even have to think about that, but it's there, okay? So, all right, let me show you something else. On average, there are 10 gun murders every year in the nation of Korea. 10. You know, which is a lot from a certain perspective, you know? I mean, each murder is a murder. I mean, this is the life that someone has lost, okay? Well, Korea is about 1/6 the size of the United States, right? So you're a nation of 51 million people. We are 333 million people. So I take Korea, I take that 10, at number 10, I multiply it by 6, and I get 60. So 60 every year if you were the size of the United States in population numbers, okay? Well, we have 60 murders in the United States. 60. So we also have 60. Okay? Every 24 hours. So let me hold the mirror up to you again. The values and the characteristics of Korean society. Who are you? What do you believe? What is important to you as a nation? What is important? How did Korea get here? How do you get to the place where you would have 60 murders and we have 60 every 24 hours? Now, I'm a sociologist, so I can answer that question. But my answer would be entirely irrelevant because I cannot answer that question. And more importantly, I cannot answer the question of how you only have 10 murders per year. how if you were the size of the U.S., if you were like the United States, you'd have 60 every 24 hours. That's not possible. This is a different world. We say that gun laws, no. We tolerate 60 murders every 24 hours. We stop the newspaper stops reporting on the murders. We have mass murders and mass killings. You don't even read about them in the newspaper. You think, oh, I read about another school shooting in the United States. You didn't read about the other 10 that happened that didn't make the media here in Korea. How do we get there? And how did you get here? See, part of understanding the values and characteristics of Korea is to understand what Korea is not. See, once again, remember, we only know who we are by knowing what we are not. Otherwise, we have nothing to measure ourselves by. And remember that idea that I had to say, wow, Koreans are really critical. I talk to Koreans and they say, like, we're really an angry people. We have fiery tempers. I'm like, okay, yeah, all right, I see that. I get some of that. But do you have that? Do those fiery tempers lead to that? Well, but we allow certain things to happen in our society. Our values. We've lost control over our values. We in Korea no longer value the things that we used to value. We're losing this sense of community. Students and young people today no longer respect their elders, no longer respect their teachers, no longer respect their communities in the way they used to do. Really? Okay. All right, I get that. But step outside of your culture. Look at what it's like in many other places. I'll talk to you about not respecting. It's a very different world when you see a life, a culture, a people from the lens of other cultures and peoples and nations. Here, so we have this. Well, you have this too. It's called your army. Here, my town, I gave you the example of the riot in my town, okay? And we have other riots, in my town, right? But it's not. People aren't shooting one another. These are students. They're doing what students do. They're rioting, right? Our campus has this equipment for the police, okay? Our town, the police in our town have all of this equipment here. It's a small town. I live in a very small college town. My university at Penn State is one of the largest universities in the world. It dominates the whole town. Our police have all of this equipment. Every medium-sized to large-sized town in the United States have police that look like this and at any moment can be mobilized in this way. So 4 weeks ago when I was here at teaching at Kongguk, I was there during the festival. And the festivals here, right? And think students are doing what students do, just drink, yeah. But the difference is, the students are selling alcohol to other students to raise money for all of their activities throughout the year. on my campus, we can't even have alcohol if you're a student. We don't sell alcohol anywhere on our campus. That would never happen. Here, there you go. It's everywhere. Students, I was out on the campus at 1 in the morning. Students are still going strong. Right? Okay? So now, like my students, it's very similar, But here's the thing that was really interesting to me. I didn't see any police. I'm like, where are the police? And they say, oh, there's a police officer there. They're not just dressed kind of like I am, very casual, And then later I saw, oh, there's another police officer. Okay, got it. If that had been at my university, during football games at my university, we have 200 or 300 police on campus like this. Right? Like this. So you're just going to enjoy a football game on a college campus, and you're running into police who look like this. I mean, they're not doing that same thing, and they don't have the shields because they don't need the shields, but this is a different world. So I talk to Koreans, and I say, oh yeah, we need stronger police. I'm like, you need stronger police? Like what? Okay. Police? Let me tell you about police. How do we get to this place, and many other countries get to this place where instead of trying to figure out what the problem is, we decide, oh, what we're going to buy is we're going to arm our police to be like military, and we're going to send them out onto college campuses, outside of college rooms, classrooms, wherever it is, and they're going to look like this. Imagine that you're on your college campus and this is what you encounter. What kind of education? This institution here, 600 years old. This is what you get to. Once again, we understand who we are by understanding who we are not. Okay? So, and by the way, it's not dangerous. I don't ever feel danger in my town. I mean, I feel, late at night, if I go to an area where there are a lot of students and the students are really drunk, and then some of the young men, they get really drunk and they get violent, and if they don't know me, maybe someone will fight me or want to fight me or something. And I say, okay, I don't want to go through that. And so I don't want to leave the impression that, we're walking around feeling a sense of danger all the time, because that's not necessarily true. All Americans, almost every American will say, yeah, I'm really a bit concerned about being in a mass shooting. We have so many shootings, but it's a big place. It's a big nation. Most people are not going to have any experience of violence in their lives in the United States. So if you've never traveled to the U.S., you don't have to be afraid to go. I mean, there are many places I wouldn't go, many places I wouldn't go even, but if you've traveled there, it's okay. But my friends who come from places like Afghanistan, in Haiti, in Iraq, in other war zones, they're afraid to come to the United States. Their families tell them, hey, be careful over there. You might get shot. My friend from Iraq, from Mosul, Iraq, where ISIS took over, came to the U.S., and his friends and family are saying, you probably shouldn't go there. You might get killed. And I think, get killed? You're coming from Mosul, Iraq. So I don't want to leave that impression. But these are the values. So I ask Americans, just like I'm asking you, I'm saying well, who are you? Understand who you are not in order to understand who you are. Well, I say the same thing to Americans. And one of the reasons I talk about Korea is because in places like Korea, so it's not, everything is a little bit different, but I talk about Korea is because I want to show other people, it's just hey, what you see as reality isn't the only reality in the world. Look at this country of 51 million people over here. Look what they're managing to do. So then, I asked this question. And what allows Koreans to build a society without these same social problems? What allows for that? Now, this is the moment when I would have 4 of you sitting here on the edge of the stage, and I would just ask you, okay, answer the question. And I could pick 4 random people out, and I would get 4 very different answers. But this is the moment when our minds are going. Say, what allows Koreans to build a society without this same level of social? What has happened here? Like, what are the values of Korea? What are the characteristics of Korea? What do you live with that you don't even know? You know, fish are the last species to understand what water is. Fish do not know what water is. They live in water. They don't see it. They don't feel it. It means nothing to them. That's how culture is. That's how our values are for all of us. We don't really understand them unless we can get outside of them, which of course is one of the reasons that I really love to travel and step into the shoes of other people around the world and average people. You know, when I go places, I want to go into the average home. I talk to average people. Just want to know what they think. I don't talk to scholars. I rarely talk to scholars. I want to talk to people. You tell me how it is to live in your world. What does it mean? So I have a couple answers to this question, by the way. Myself, after all this time, I guess 40 years, in some ways I've been thinking about Korea, but, you know. So here's something. Now, I'm going to explain a little bit about, you know, what I mean by this. So here would be a quote that someone in your culture might say. So the personal criticism is directed toward others, okay? Not directed at others, toward others, meaning like my personal criticism of myself has to be seen through the eyes of other people. So I need to improve this issue or this thing, whatever it is, so that I can be a contributing member of my groups and my communities. Like, I need to improve this so that I can contribute to my people and my community. It's like, I don't want, or here's another one, I don't want people to think of me in a negative way, so I need to improve. Personal criticism directed toward others. Like, I don't want them to see me in that way, so I got to improve something. So, like, yeah. So we have these problems here. Violence, crime, disability rights, homelessness, poverty, whatever it is. I have a problem. But I can only understand that problem by understanding that I don't want other people to see me in a certain way, so I got to fix this. Or social criticism directed at oneself. Right? Oh, it's my fault that this is a problem. You see, in an individualist-oriented culture, which is the cultures of the West, and not just my own, but cultures of the West, it's never my fault. It's somebody else. And here, it doesn't mean that no Korean says, oh, this is entirely my fault, I got to fix it. But you are much more inclined to start there, or at least be willing to entertain that the problem actually is your problem, that you need to take ownership of this problem. Now, you are going to blame lots of people. You're going to blame the government, you're going to blame this, you're going to blame... But you are always going to also blame yourselves. Or, what can I do to help make this problem no longer be a problem? That's just built into thinking, characteristics and values. What can I do to help make this problem no longer be a problem? What can I do? Because the problem, it's not just somebody else's. This is a community here. You know, and see, you're lucky that you're a relatively small nation. You're a homogeneous nation. You know, you are all Koreans here. There's one language, fundamentally. I mean, now, increasingly, there are many different languages that are spoken, but it's fundamentally, you're lucky that you're living among people who have ancestors from the Korean peninsula. This peninsula that is surrounded by water on three sides. So you have that. Mine is a nation built with people from all over the world and built on land that was somebody else's land that we took from them, and then built also with slaves from Africa. So it's a very complex place. So it's much more difficult, and it's a big place. So it's more difficult to take ownership. And in Europe, it's a similar thing with European history. And here, you're kind of lucky. You have an advantage. It's this communitarian orientation. And it doesn't mean it's the only thing that you think about. It doesn't mean that. But there's a scale here. And the scale on one side is community orientation. It's like thinking about what is best for the community. And on the other side over here is individual orientation. What is best for me as an individual? Because that's really important. You know, I need to be thinking of me. I need to be happy. But you, as a nation, are much more capable of leaning in this direction. Not entirely. Understand, it's not entirely, but you're much more capable of leaning here. So when I go back to these social problems, to answer this question, what's extremely important is this sense of social criticism. The resolution of these problems includes me. It must include me more than it does in many, many, and I will say most other cultures. It includes me. Like, no, what am I going to do? What role do I have? And you don't think this. It's not conscious. It's not, you don't look in a mirror and say, whoa, I see a person who is homeless. What am I going to do? It's not there. It's so tightly woven. Remember, the fish does not understand water. We don't understand who we are without understanding what we are not. Okay? So here's a second one. So as competitive actions and thoughts are commonly directed toward oneself rather than other people, or I should have written that differently, are more likely to be directed at oneself than other people. Okay. Look, it's very different to compete with oneself than it is to see the person next to you as the primary competition. Oh, I'm competing with that person. Either they're going to get ahead or I'm going to get ahead. It's them or it's me. That's competition in the West. This is all about me, individualist orientation to life. What do I need? What do I want? What do I feel? What has value for me? When I take the seat on the subway and somebody else could have it, it doesn't matter. I don't even see that person. It's irrelevant. Competitive actions directed toward oneself. It's like, yes, I got to do the best. I have to make the most money. I have to get the furthest that I possibly can in my job. I have to get the highest grades. I have to go to the best school. I have to do the best, live in the best neighborhood, have the best car. But the competition, the primary, or much more likely that a significant part of the competition that is there is directed toward oneself in this culture. Whereas in other cultures, in the West for sure, the primary motivation for that is directed toward others. Constant competition with the other. And again, there's a beautiful thing here because, you have an advantage. It's a different kind of society. So you can have a sense that, you can, you're competing with people who are largely like you. They have a history that's similar, but it matters. And it changes everything. Values and characteristics.